Good morning. Okay, it says my audio is coming in, so I'll give a few moments and let people check and see. So, what are you working on this week? What are you looking forward to? I plan to go to the pumpkin patch this week. That is my looking forward to thing. Um, over the weekend, I got to watch one of my favorite kind of Halloweenish movies. I got to watch Haunted Honeymoon that was written, directed, and starred by Gene Wilder. If you know Gene Wilder, you know how awesome that would be. Um, it's one of those movies that tricks you into thinking things are one way and then they're the other. Um, it has Dom DeLuise in drag. Um, there's a lot about it that's awesome. It also has Linda Radner. Is that her name? I think that's her name. She's played with Gene Wilder several times. She was very famous as a comedian. Um, but yeah, it's pretty good. So I got to share that with somebody who, you know, may not have seen it before. Um, let's see what else. Working on the cookbook, on the box set, on Obsidian Vendetta revision. That's what I got planned. What else do I have planned? Our Scorpio writer birthday is coming up. Scorpio season is coming very soon. Um, Howl at the Moon Day is this Saturday, and I've never heard of this holiday. This is a new holiday for me, but it sounds pretty cool. Werewolf recognition. Werewolf recognition day, Jen says. I got a mug of tea. I started a little early, so I'm almost finished with it. How is your spooky season going? I've only visited one store that does has Halloween stuff. I haven't gone to Spirits yet. We have driven around and seen people's Halloween decorations. We did do that um, a little bit. We have a family not far from us that every holiday looks like it explodes on their yard. And even I love Halloween, and I'm like, that's a little much, a little much. Um, but yeah, just looking around and doing stuff. I've got a little bit more decluttering to do in the house. Um, like a bathroom shelf cabinet. Well, it's not really a cabinet, but it's a shelf. Um, my makeup to organize and all that fun stuff. And then I'm still working on the kitchen. I recently got rid of some coffee mugs we don't need, um, some bakeware that we're not really going to use because we aren't baking, because none of us really need the sugar. So, so things like that. And then, so I've got a little bit more of that to do. Um, a few more cabinets to declutter. I decluttered some cups and things that we didn't need that we saved from locations like Rudy's and Fuzzy's Taco Shop and things like that. Because you come home with a plastic cup and you're like, well, hey, it's a plastic cup. I'll just use it. Thank you, Jen. And then you do, and you have it forever, and the logo is scrubbed off. you know, it's like, no, we really don't need this many, because most of us are using, things like these. We've got a couple of these kinds of things, which I got this from my beautiful Brandy. Um, and it's like, why do we need 15 cups when we don't have that many people that come to visit? Um, we could be rebels. Uh-huh. We could be rebels. Uh-huh. Uh, so decluttering has been feeling nice. Um, Made a lot more space. Um, I have a few more places to try to declutter. The biggest things for me to get rid of, the hardest things, are books, um, and art supplies. Those are probably two of my hardest things. Yeah, I could see that is two of my hardest things. Um, but we're working on it. We're working on it. We're downsizing slowly but surely. Probably going to do more next year. But we are trying to make a concerted effort that we're not buying more items that are going to take up space and that we can't take with us. So, try not to get more breakable things, um, that kind of thing. Because really, we don't need more stuff. I'm trying to get rid of it, so we don't need more stuff. Let's see. What else is going on? Let me see. So figure out where my mouse is. Ooh. There you. Wow, you're being weird today. Thank you. My mouse is being super weird today. Oh, nobody shared any new work. Okay. If you are helping out with the cookbook, it is the last week to submit recipes for October. I think we have a few recipes. Yeah. We have a few. Remember, if you are chosen as the spotlight recipe, you get a advertisement page in the cookbook and you get your name on the cookbook. So that's two nice perks. So go for that. Let's see. I finished a couple of shows this week. I've got a finale coming today. So I'm kind of like, got my Kleenex ready. But I finished my rewatch of The Untamed because it's about to leave Netflix. Um, and that's a lot of episodes, but I finally did it. Of course, I skipped some things because I was like, well, the person I'm trying to follow isn't involved in these things. And I was following a character that was just as devious as the bad guy, but for a different purpose. N- no, it's Fanboy. Oh, okay. I was following Fanboy because he makes people think he's completely incompetent, but yet he is masterminding so much behind the scenes to get back at the bad guy, which we call Weasel Nugget. And like the moment when we started watching the show, I was like, oh, and I nicknamed people. So the bad guy got nicknamed Weasel Nugget, and Fanboy got nicknamed Fanboy because he doesn't really hold a blade or a sword. Um, there's a reason for that. So he usually has a hand painted fan that has special metal on it. So actually, his fan is sort of his magic tool, um, which is kind of cool. But kind of everybody kind of sees him as this unimportant character, and you miss him. You're like, oh, he's just a buddy. He's not, super important or anything until you get to the end, and then you're like, oh, well, shit. Didn't see that one coming. That was a big twist. I was like, no, oh. So they got me there. I fully admit, like all period Chinese dramas, you got to get through the first episode. Except for the one I have been watching, Wonderland of Love, that hooked me on the first episode, and I was very surprised because they handled exposition very well. I'm like, oh, okay, you did good. Where the Untamed kind of tried to give you a lot of information all at once, stuck you in a battle that you don't know what's going on. You don't know who's the good guys and who's the bad guys, and you're kind of confused. And you're like, wait, what? And then they bring you back to that battle later, and you're like, oh, okay, now I know who everybody is. Yeah. Uh, okay. So let's get on to our um, tips and stuff. We're working in The Writer's Little Helper by James B. Smith Jr. Um, and today we are going to look at imagery versus description. My advice, never write description. Description implies stopping the story to write colorful stuff instead of create powerful imagery, which suggests keeping the story in motion using those images to pump up the action, conflict, and dialogue. Checklist for creating powerful imagery. Painting the image in small bites. Never stop your story to describe. Keep it going, incorporating vivid images, enlarging the action, and putting the dialogue in context. For example, a sponge carpet of pine needles covered the trail. It cushioned their soles and absorbed the sounds of their footsteps. Rhonda stopped short and whispered, "Something's coming there." To the right, a bear. Next point, incorporate images into action. Suppose I had written, "A million years of discarded pine needles lay on the forest floor, carpeting the trail." That's description, static. The author's talking. Can you hear him reading from an encyclopedia? The difference in the first version is tying their walking to soundless footsteps. This clears the way for Rhonda to hear and see. She pointed at the lumbering hulk for all the good that pointing would do in the ink of night. Bill grasped her arm. No, it can't be. But the crashing of brush told them it could. Yes, get up a tree. Next point. See through the character's eyes. Hear through her ears. When you can, use the character's senses instead of the author's. It's called character point of view. She felt her pulse both in her throat and under the grip of that hand of his crushing her forearm. His breath, she heard it in short, chattering bursts. She smelled it too. Fear stunk. Next point. Use the tiny but telling detail. She tore free of his grip and leapt off the trail. A spider's web tugged at her face. Any other time she would have screamed. She ran into a tree, a rough pine burrow slapping her breasts and needles stabbing in at her eyes. Any other time she would have cursed. The spider's web ever ran into one? Yeah. The next point, choose action-bearing verbs. Cushioned, absorbed, stopped, whispered, pointed, grasped, tore, leaped, tugged, screamed, ran, slapped, stabbed, cursed. These words do so much more than say what is. They indicate first fear, then panic. Next point. Choose action-bearing non-verbs. Looming is a verb form used as an adjective. Crashing is used as a noun. Next point. Invent fresh viewpoints. She climbed blindly and so quickly like a ladder that was scary. If she could scale this pine so easily, couldn't the bear climb it too? She drove her head into a branch, but the sound of crying wasn't there. Help, it's got me. Bill, oh God, Bill. The bear had him. She climbed, seeing nothing but sparklers of pain in her head. He shrieked at her from the dark below. She could not respond. This is the viewpoint of a woman in panic and pain. When she looks into the darkness, she sees only sparkles. Clearly, she's so frightened, she's only trying to save herself. Next point. Create an image without saying so. The pine limbs now bent like those of a Christmas tree. A fresh breeze chilled her skin. Bill, she whispered, speak to me, for God's sake, speak to me, Bill. But he did not. All she could hear was snorting and thrashing. She put a hand to her mouth. She thought she might scream, but nothing came out of her mouth. Fear of attacking the bear kept her quiet. Of attracting the bear kept her quiet. The pitch on her arm, on her hand glued her lips shut, and yes, the shame that silenced her too. The thin limbs bending in the fresh breeze tells us Rhonda has climbed high into the tree. The chill tells us she's been sweating, and the pitch, though she and we don't notice it in the climbing, is there on her hands and face. So I try frequently, especially when I'm unsure of how to start a chapter, um, to use description or to use the five senses of my character. I often write in first person, so my point of view is not me, it's the character. But do you write more description or imagery? How do you feel about one versus the other? I'd love to hear your opinion in the comments section. I'm feeling a little low energy day, so I'm going to go ahead and start the reading. So we're probably going to end soon. Okay, this is chapter 3 of The Fire Inside. I'm sorry, If the Seas Catch Fire. If you'd like to hear the first 2 chapters, there is a playlist, Tea Time with S.A. Crow, and it'll say If the Seas Catch Fire, and you can find the first 2 chapters there. The first weekday of Christmas in the weak Seattle sunlight casts a dreary shadow over the famous skyline as I peer out the vast picture windows of my conference room. I hear an exasperated sigh from the whiteboard-covered table behind me and glance back to see my colleague ring a wide, dark knuckles. I hear an exasperated sigh from the whiteboard-covered table behind me and glance back to see a college ring on wide, dark knuckles gleaming in the lights above us as Cass and my business partner taps an aggravated rhythm on its surface. He studies his watch and rubs his bronze-ringed palm over his shaved deep brown hair. Our current client, Miss Morin, is over 20 minutes late. She negotiated an exclusive privileged client clause in our agreement, stipulating that we only focus on her projects while under contract with her. I know, I say over my shoulder, trying to placate Cass. I force myself to keep from pacing with nervous energy by taking a deep breath. The spa perfume of the offices calms me after filling my lungs with air. Jacqueline's business tone drifts to us from down the hall, and expressing her apology for something that isn't altogether clear. The clever administrative assistant does her best to hide her clenched fists and tight-lipped expression as she ushers Miss Moran inside the room. Miss Moran, thank you for meeting with us today. We have a few concept designs that we're excited to discuss with you, I say as I round the table. She towers above me, her tan hand tipped with crimson nails, grasping mine in a limp handshake. My grip is tighter than I believe is professional, but she's everything I'm not, and it puts me in a mood. I catch myself envious of how her business suit complements her athletic build as Cass rises and grasps her hand gingerly, his large palm enveloping her smaller one. We sit at the table, then I move and stack conceptual boards near, and picking up the first, I upturn and pass it to Miss Moran. This idea is whimsical, inspired by Pixar's building. I describe the first board's concept. Miss Moran doesn't even let the board touch her elegant hands, hardly glancing down her nose at it. I fill a crystal glass from the pitcher of fruit-infused water from the middle of the table and take a slow drink before continuing my presentation. She shows me no emotion, so as I flip over the next and shift it towards her. This design is comparable to architectural choices popular in the area. She inspects the board in question from the same distance as the first, giving us no idea of her thoughts. This one we're especially passionate about. It's becoming more and more difficult to stay professional with how dismissive this client is being, so I try and really punch the final choice. It's always so nerve-wracking to put your creations up for judgment anyway, but she's giving nothing at all to work with. I think Cass picks up on the anxiety of my sudden silence when his lips snap shut unexpectedly and I can't think of anything else to say. We anticipated some insight on your decision direction. Cass peers over at my panicked expression, shrugs her shoulders when she doesn't immediately respond. Miss Moran shifts through the project boards with the tips of her crimson nails. The glossy paint prints and samples flutter in the diffused pearlescent light as she tosses one by one aside from her, sliding them toward us in a repellent gesture. I hired your company because you're new and independent. I believed I'd cause you to be ravenous. She reaches over to the pastries Jack placed on a platter on the table, chooses a lemon mousse raspberry macaroon, and lifts it to her painted lips to nibble a bit before continuing to bash our hard work. These designs don't read hungry to me. They scream safe and dated. I want you to wow me. She rises, an annoyed goddess, dismissing us and our own office. I'll reschedule another meeting with your secretary out front. We remain in sudden silence, an expression of disbelief on Cass's face that I'm sure matches my own. I can't sit still with the rage and energy rising inside me, so I push myself up and stomp around the room. My heels sink into the plush carpet as I dodge a chair, circling the table. I've not failed a client before. Thoughts of my mother wasting her money and life on recurring multi-level at-home sales jobs causes me to shiver in repulsion. I'm not about to fail at my business. My chest fills with determination and I spin to face Cass. Back to the drawing board. His eyebrows narrow at my statement. We're going to put up with this bratty attitude from a sanctimonious stick figure. Cass! I admonish him for his choice of words and what it implies. No, we'll be professionals, and we haven't botched a job yet. I'll not surrender, not today. All right, I agree. The stick figure comment was wrong. Everyone comes in various shapes and sizes, but Mal, that behavior is unprofessional. Admit it. True, she was late to the meeting she set up. She has us by the short hairs with this exclusive clause. I can't control the client, but I can try to win her over with incredible designs. I'm not ready to give up. Cass rubs his head again and makes a noise of agreement. Let's order lunch and put our heads together. Now that's an idea I can get behind. Too bad Raven doesn't deliver, he laughs. No kidding. New Year's Eve. The crisp, wet evening air tingles my cheeks as I walk towards the Kimpton Hotel in downtown Seattle. The holiday lights wrapped around trees and buildings, giving off a hazy aura like miniature stars. The Kimpton is a shining beacon of grandeur, lit with sparkling lights in the gloomy, laden sky. The doorman spots me and opens the grand brass handle door, admitting me into the warmth and opulence of the lobby. I shake the wet from my jacket and hand it off to a coat check attendant, taking in the holiday perfume filling the air. Raven requested I show up before the celebration tonight in the bar inside Kismet, the hotel restaurant she once worked for. Little did we realize she'd end up drafting 2 cookbooks instead of being a personal chef when she left Kismet. I spot a notice board placed outside the bar on the elegant parquet floor with an exquisite script that reads, "Special party, invited guests only." My best friend is glowing with happiness, her brown hair curled and pulled back from her face. A peach cocktail dress hugs her curves, and the color complements her light tan skin. She's chatting with the bartender, catching up on their lives since she quit. He nods at me, causing Raven to swivel on the stool. She throws her arms in the air. She launches herself across the floor at me. I brace for her impact, her vanilla scent filling my senses as we clasp one another tightly. We jump and screech in glee. "I can't believe it," she chants repeatedly. Her joy is contagious as it fills the surrounding space. "I know. Let me get a look at this ring." I extract myself from her embrace. Beaming, she pulls away and lets me reach for her hand and hold it up to the light. I fawn over the vintage floral rose gold petite ring with a carat major stone and accented smaller diamonds, and set in a leaf and petal shape around the main diamond. It looks just as pretty in person as it did in the picture she sent me over text. "It's glorious and perfect for you." "Oh, Mallory," she chokes up, unable to complete her sentence. Tears of joy shine on her dark lashes. I squeeze her harder for a few moments. If I didn't know their story, the idea of Travis proposing after less than a year might be a red flag. But they've been through more than I'll ever know in a lifetime. Stalkers, vindictive exes, crazy mothers, homicidal PR managers, and that's just the first few months of their relationship. It's clear what they have is strong and lasting. "Where's Travis?" "He's off with Nash, Tony, and Steve doing last minute stuff." "When did you need me? Why did you need me early?" "You are my best friend, and I couldn't imagine doing this without you beside me. Will you be my maid of honor?" Maids of honor are usually married, right? Maids of honor are single girlfriends. And anyway, I couldn't care less about tradition. I need you with me when I take this big step forward. "Say you'll do it." Her eyes swell with hope and expectation. How can I say no to her? "Yes, you always have me." She jumps up and down with excitement. "You're incredible and you won't regret this." She hugs me tightly. This calls for a drink to celebrate. She leads me towards the bartender for 2 fuzzy navels on the rocks and introduces me as her maid of honor. We chat about my new client, Selma Morin. Raven's horrified at Selma's conduct and agrees with Cass. The peach and citrus tang wafts up as I lift my glass and drink. She has an online cooking show idea and plans to help at a food pantry. I swell with excitement for her and offer my support. She giggles at me, the pleasure in her eyes popping champagne bubbles. She turns as someone calls her name and gazes at the doorway. I see Travis gazing back at Raven, his shocking baby blue eyes full with an intimate emotion so strong my throat tightens. I spot Tony smiling at them and shaking his head at the same thought. Then there's Steve. He's tall, lean, muscled frame encased in charcoal slacks and a tight gray shirt under a sports coat. He's beaming at me, and his tawny eyes darken as I stare into them. A flirty smile curls his lips, and I grin up at him despite myself. He takes his time coming to me until I can sense the intensity of his body before he's even near enough to touch. He reaches around me, and his woodsy scent envelops me as he snags my highball glass in his large hands with nimble fingers and constantly makes me shiver with passion and what he'd be capable of with them. He rises it to his nose and sniffs the alcohol as the ice cubes rattle. Sweet. May I?" With a yes, I watch him lick the rim where my lipstick imprints the glass. A fusion runs the length of my body. He sips and smirks at me and returns the glass to the napkin on the bar top. "Did you say yes?" I'm unsure what I said yes to until he nods his head at Raven and Travis next to us. "Oh, yes, did you?" My voice strains from the hunger coursing through me in waves. "Oh, yes." His husky tone gives me the impression that he's as primed as I am. Noise from the entrance interrupts the moment we're having, and I draw my first deep breath in what has to be forever since he entered the room. I reach for my drink and graze the rim with my tongue, tasting him and my lipstick mixing with the orange and peach liquor. He's watching Travis and Raven dance to the music coming from the speakers with a smile on his face. There's maybe longing in his eyes. I slip off the stool and leaning into his space, whisper, "Dance with me? I dare you." He turns and takes my hand, leading me to the dance floor. I thought you'd never ask. I suppress a grin. Someone had to get the party started. He holds me close, and I learn quickly that he's an excellent dancer. It's easy to let him take the lead. My body heats, and my center grows heavy with need. When are we going to move beyond flirting? I can't be the only one who feels this. He moves his chin into the space between us as we dance among the growing group of people. You're not alone. My voice is breathy and lower than I've ever heard it. Do you have a room? His heartbeat intensifies under my palm, and I feel his chest rising and falling as if he's been running. Yes? Is that yes to both, Mallory? Conviction and a challenge fills his eyes, asking me to not disappoint him with a wishy-washy answer. Yes, I nod to reinforce my decision. He pulls us out of the dance, and with his hand tangled in mine, we make our way to the exit. Steve, you got a moment? Tony sounds contrite. This is important, and he hates to interrupt. Steve peers at me, asking me to wait for him. A small trickle of irritation flows through me, but it's gone in the feel of Steve's hand brushing down my arm and squeezing my hand in reassurance. I've waited this. I've wanted this for so long, I guess I can wait a little longer. I nod at him and let the guys move away while I spot some friends nearby to chat with. Steve can find me when he's done, if he's still interested in taking this further. Ooh. So that was chapter 3. I hope you enjoyed that. And I will be back on Saturday, not Friday. I have a doctor's appointment in the morning. So I won't be here on Friday, but I will be here on Saturday, health pending. So I hope you have a fantastic week and that you get all the words or all the edits done. And I will see you guys soon. Bye.